This podcast is brought to you by Winner Circle. It is our quarterly contest inside of our market, and our first one is the Winner Winners Ducks Dinner. Associates, DSCs, RSCs, you hit your quarterly metric, and you are going to a Ducks game with the market staff. Hit your 4 new accounts, hit your Fireball, hit your All-Star, and you're coming with us. Welcome back to LA Legends, the podcast where Aflac pros sharpen their edge, share stories from the field, build the next generation of legends in the LA market. I am Michael Fisher.
And I'm Michelle Lee. Every great organization grows when its leaders think beyond today. When they cast the vision, develop others to take that next step. And that's what we're diving into today.
Our guest is someone very special, passionate leader, a mentor to me and some of the biggest Aflac legends across the country, Mr. John Tyler, a.k.a. Pep, a.k.a. JT, the legend. He's created some of the Aflac's greatest leaders, including our director of sales. We are excited to dive into this one.
So we're going to actually start with just the vision. Vision casting, I think, is something I've heard from a lot of other leaders that you've done very well in painting the picture for them. So when you hear that term vision casting, what does it mean to you in the practical sense as a leader?
Vision casting to me is being able to color with your words, to make someone feel a part of the team before they actually become a part of the team, to make them understand what it is that we do. Yes, that it's work. But also it encompasses the success that you can have, financial, because people work here for a reason. I mean, they're working for, I always say, one of 4 reasons. One of them is certainly making the money. It's the biggest one. Mm-hmm. But giving them an idea of what we do, making them understand that this is the place to be.
We did have Mr. John Tyler here in sales school, and you were just painting a pretty incredible vision for the people in sales school. Can you tell us what one of these lines that I absolutely love was what it's like the first 2 years in Aflac, moving to what it's like moving to year 3, 4?
Well, you'll need to know that everything I use without exception is stolen. But
this is the way. Yeah,
I'm the same.
It's the easy way too, but it's effective because you get to learn from the very best. But I just tell them that the first 2 years, really, regardless of how successful you are, you're going to be underpaid. Even if you ride, 150, 200,000, you're going to be underpaid because you've worked hard. There's a learning curve. You have to learn what we do, and you have to just go through there's no shortcut. You've got to learn what we do. You've got to practice your skills. The more you do anything, the better you're going to get at it. And then I tell them, for the next 2 years, you're going to be paid about what you are worth, which is substantially more than you think you're worth. But then from then on, and the example I used a few minutes ago was that for the last 30, probably 4 or 5 years, I've been paid tremendously more than I'm worth. I'm glad that it works that way. The price to pay is definitely worth the ends.
Yeah, that one spoke to me for sure. I was like, I am severely overpaid, but I don't want to say that to people yet. But it's true. It's true. Great leaders aren't born, they're built. Build the Bench is a fast track to leadership where you'll learn the fundamentals from some of the best in the country. Develop the mindset, skill set, and confidence to lead your teams and drive growth. Because leadership isn't a title, it's a choice to grow.
So having a vision for one, making sure your team understands it, how do you actually communicate that and keep it in front of them? Because sometimes when we get on those hard days, people lose sight of where you're going. So how do you communicate that out and keep it in front of your team?
Well, I mean, again, this is nothing more than me parroting my mentor, which was Ron Kirkland, which always it just seems that he intuitively knew. I don't think you have to reach out and talk to these folks every single day that are on your team. I'm really speaking to a district or a region now, mm-hmm. But I mean, you should talk to them every day. But I mean, as far as encouraging them, every couple of weeks, I always try to find a way to communicate that maybe it's a win that they've had if they've opened an account or had just a big high income day. I just let them know that, every time you write a policy, you're getting a few cents, a few dollars. If you keep doing what you're doing, do you realize how much money you're going to be worth? Do you realize how much stock you're going to have? How much override as a coordinator? I mean, what you're doing right now is what gains wealth. It's again, it's the way all wealthy people get that way, and just constantly saying things that they would want to hear that I want to hear. You know, we do what we do for a reason, and we often forget, but everyone that we hire, they do what they do for the same reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important that we don't have a John Tyler talking and like pep talking us when we're like doing the hardest parts of the job, and like you actually putting those reminders in with people and building them up is something I've seen you do. I've seen you shift the room in a bunch of new regional sales coordinators and letting them see some of the potential just in themselves, which was pretty incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about leaders, we're talking about RSCs and what you've done for an RSC onboarding earlier this year. You said this during the class too, was what you do very well is spot talent.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the truth is actually what I said was that we went through this exercise. What would you be famous for if you were famous? And I said, I would probably be when you compare a talent, which I have very little natural talent, probably one of the most successful people per square inch of talent, because there's not much that you've seen. I don't do very many things very well, to be quite honest with you. I feel like I'm good at vision casting, which is spotting talent and then encouraging them and keeping the dream in front of them. Very, very good, I think, at laying out a dream. And I think I'm a very good recruiter. It's a little unorthodox the way I do it. A lot of people, you know, I think probably maybe even resist it, but it's proven to be really effective for me. So I would say just keeping in front of them.
I mean, let's stay there for a second and underscore that. Some inside of your just Aflac lineage, yeah, we have a ton of market directors. How many? I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah,
too many to count.
Too many. But see, you're about to be humble and be like, I don't know. You know, ton of territory directors, director of sales. I will say that when it comes to actually recruiting, you do have a different idea around it, and what you saw inside of our organization that I thought was really cool was one of the regions with their spouses working. Like, so how do you approach recruiting? How did you approach recruiting? I know that hasn't changed. So yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
And great for me, I don't have to have notes because I've done this way so long that I just tell you what I do.
Yeah.
And it either works or it doesn't. But I try to cover, and I tell people at the beginning of an interview, I'm going to go through 5 things. I'm going to go through who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go through what we market. We're going to talk about how we market it, and we have to talk about how we're compensated, and then climbing the company ladder for mobility within the company.
Yeah.
Everything that I do is very specific. The 4th thing, and it's always the 4th thing, is compensation. I typically have longer interviews. So if I get past 30, 40 minutes, it's usually 30 minutes in before I even get to the compensation. If I touch on the compensation, I'm probably going to hire them because I've already given them little things that I say, give them the opportunity to opt out or to back up or maybe withdraw a little bit. If I sense that, I just go in for the jugular. You know, my philosophy, I think this is important. My philosophy is a couple of things. That for my DSCs, the most valuable asset I have is my district. Right. The only argument I ever got into with my mentor, which was Ron Kirkland, was he used to always say, the associate, nothing happens till the associate, until a sale is made. And I always argued, I said, you know, that's true, but the sale's never made if it's not for the district. So I believe my most valuable asset is my districts. And so for that reason, if for any reason this isn't a match in the interview process, that's when I want to find out. Not 2 months down the road after they split $5,000-$6,000 worth of income. That's money. You know, if Aflac reversed and gave the district the commissions if someone left, that would be one thing, but they don't.
Right.
So if I've got someone that's doesn't fit the mold, I need to find out in that interview. That's why I also have a little longer interviews.
I mean, that was a really cool one to watch you even say that in sales school. Which is, it's a philosophy Michelle and I believe in, which is if you're going to fail in this career, do it quick. Do it quick because we don't want you to be mad at Aflac. We don't want you to be mad. We don't want your spouse to be mad at you or your partner or whatever. Honestly, like we could part as friends, have an early retirement, have some beers, and then move on and get some referrals. Getting them out early is nice, and so it sounds like you also do that early on in your recruiting, which I really respect that because it's not for everybody. Yeah.
That's something you've done even in that interview, like the transparency we have about what we do and being upfront about it. We try to do that in sales school, just lay it out because it doesn't work for everybody. So I think the more transparent you can be about what it takes and the fact that it's tough and laying it down there, and the people that stay tend to stay for a while.
I want to just tell you, it's funny that you said I had no idea what these questions were going to be about, but it does bring back a memory. I've seen a lot of times people paint the big picture and, how much you're going to make. Oh, you'll probably make, 100, 150,000. Mm-hmm. Well, what I realize is after they've been here, 5, 6, 7 weeks and they haven't made the money that's in line with that, it's not like they're not like dumb. I mean, they realize that they've been painted a picture. I just think that the reason also, I want to add, the reason that people give such a big number when somebody asks, what can I expect to make, is because they want to keep them connected. They want to keep them, interested. What it actually does when you tell them very candidly, for example, if I'm asked what will I expect to make?
Yeah.
I tell them, probably 50 if you're really good the first year. And I follow that with, look, I can tell you what you want to hear. I prefer to tell you the truth because I want you to think about what I'm saying. You're going to probably make 50 the first year. You may make more. I made 60 in a half a year, but I don't know if I compare you to me. I can only see the outside of you. You look good, but I don't know what your work ethic is. But what I can tell you is that after the first year, it's like hitting a golf ball, playing a sport, practicing a speech. You're going to get better. You're going to get better. And your income only goes up exponentially with the effort that you put in. And so I think it's just really, really important. And what actually happens, by the way, is when you are transparent and you're giving them a lower number, you think you're actually pushing them away. It's like putting a lasso around them and just tightening, you're bringing them in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because they realize that this guy or this gal, whoever, is telling me the way it is. And it makes it very real, very believable to them. And that's what you have to do. Think about this. We can't talk to someone for 15, 20 minutes in an interview and expect them to give their 2-week notice. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to spend time. You're going to have to let them know, if you follow me, I'm the guy you want to follow because I can take you to the financial promised land. If they don't believe that, they won't follow you.
Yeah. A big one. I mean, Michelle and I worked together forever, obviously, and you're stuck with them after you hire them. They're working in your organization. So, I mean, I think that it's such a big deal because it's telling somebody, hey, first year, 40, 50 grand. And then, hey, if I have plenty of people that they were like, dude, you're an idiot. I made I made 6 figures. It was amazing. But I also had a ton of people that were like, hey, thank you so much for not being the one person in a sales interview that didn't sugarcoat things. You said it was going to be hard. You said that the first 90 days was going to be the most challenging 90 days that I was going to experience. And honestly, that the first year is like that. And honestly, that the first 2 years is kind of like that. They also, when they actually are going through it and realize, hey, it's not actually as challenging as you painted, you get some pretty incredible talent. Some of those people are regions now that went through that.
One thing I did notice, I learned this early on, is if you tell someone they're going to make, 50,000 and they make 40, you're a liar. But if you tell them you're going to make 40 or 50 and they make 60, 70, you're the greatest guy ever was, Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that word it's a small fraternity out there. People learn about that,
Yeah, absolutely.
Attracting and keeping the best talent means offering more than just a paycheck. Aflac Value Added Services delivers real-life support for your team. Identity protection from IRIS. Modern protection against scamming, phishing, and identity theft with proactive monitoring. Aflac Value Added Services, because supporting your team means supporting their whole well-being.
All right. Staying on leadership development, can you just talk a little bit through accountability? You've obviously led market directors, regions, director of sales. So can you talk through a little bit about your process for accountability and these kind of courageous conversations that you've had?
I can. I mean, it's really a simple process for me. I make it simple. I believe that when there's a clear direction, which we call, sometimes it becomes vain repetition, but we call it, vision casting. When there's a clear destination and you can clearly make the person that you've promoted, whether it be to an RSC or DSC, understand what can be, to understand, that the expectations that I have, yes, but that they have for themselves. I try to have a conversation so that they know, what's the upside of this promotion? Is it money? And usually for me, I try to find out through a series of questions, finding out what it is that they want, their why, and once you know their why, then I can kind of pivot and talk to that, explaining that this opportunity is going to allow you to get that. And here's how, if it's financial, I talk about the finances. Yeah. If it's, whatever it is. And really, to me, a clear destination, a clear visual of where they're going, they hold themselves accountable. The good ones will hold themselves accountable. One thing I heard from Ron Kirkland, and it's everything I do is stolen, but you don't have to yell at people that want the same thing as you, and I think I want that on my grave when I die.
I love that one. And
steal that one.
Yeah, I'm stealing that one. I'm stealing that one. You've actually inspired me because it's one of those things that when you were doing the RSC onboarding and you genuinely, people were getting stuck of oh yeah, how do I hold my DSCs accountable to NAP or EAP and all? And you're just stop, guys, just stop. What are you trying to achieve here? What's the big goal? And what's those DSCs' big goals? It makes it so much easier because it's you're not going to get stuck on one or two metrics. You're going to be talking about it's a bigger conversation about them.
So you actually said something in a previous conversation, and I think a lot of when we try to motivate people, inspiring our leaders, because I think a lot of times people get those confused and think it's the same thing. Motivation and inspiration.
Between
motivation and inspiration. Yeah.
You're going to go to a meeting, and if the speakers are good, if thing isn't thrown together, if there's a halfway decent agenda, you're going to get motivated. Anybody can get motivated, but that lasts, a day. And I think what I said was that I would far rather inspire someone because motivation lasts a day, a week, maybe a month if you're lucky. Inspiration, if you inspire someone, it creates a change in activity, change behavior, what they do. And there's also adherence to that because they're sold. To get inspired, you have to hit a vein. You have to say something that resonates with them. And maybe, it's, I get it, just a moment of clarity. And they realize it's really that simple. Yeah, it really is. What we do is not hard. It requires adherence, which is another thing altogether. Stick-to-itness. You have to do that, but it's really pretty simple.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I wanted to ask you because you get it. I've seen you get fired up when you see people that are just focused on just raw leadership and not getting stuck in the weeds on certain things. So what is one, if you could talk to our DSCs, future leaders, what's one leadership principle that you would just feel hey, if you do this, work this muscle, what's that one leadership principle that you'd want them to really, really be working on?
At the risk of sounding really, really cliche-ish, I would really say burn your boats, you come in. Yesterday, I was actually talking to one of your RSCs, Charles, and his wife, and, got the office. He's got his wife bought in. She happened to make the slideshow somebody mentioned. And, and I told her, I said, I remember when I took the region, my first region, I said, it hurt. It hurt to go to dinner. It's how am I going to pay for this? And then, but you just keep on doing things. There's a saying, and it's a saying for a reason. Good, intelligent work doesn't go unrewarded for long. And so if you're doing the right things and you burn your boats, you get the office and you do smart things, right things, constantly interviews, seeking talent, trying to encourage people, vision cast when you get a chance. It's not vision casting is like recruiting. It's not an activity that you set aside in your daytime to do. You do it where you are, and you do it when the opportunity's right. Don't feel forced. You don't want it to feel forced. You want to constantly, I love I used to get my jollies making lots of money. I love watching people succeed. And thank God I've gotten to the point that I can be a little less, I've not always been the most selfless person, but like I get my jollies now over helping somebody like Charles, you know,
Mhm.
he cares enough to pour into his own business. Those are the people I want to help. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes perfect sense to me.
No, it
did,
makes
but-
absolute sense.
Yeah.
I think we're like-minded, all of us, right?
Struggling to connect with business owners? The Site Seller gives you the facts, talking points, and solutions you need right at your fingertips. Build trust, show value, and close deals with confidence. Site Seller, where conversations turn into partnerships.
So let's talk about like multiplying the growth through leadership. So you talked a little about recruiting and vision casting with our RSCs. Sustainability is a keyword that Michael Fisher used to say all the time. Took a year for it to stick on my mind. But what does sustainable leadership growth look like in a region?
Well, what happened to me in my case, and it worked pretty well, was I remember distinctly asking, Ron Kirkland was my mentor, and I remember asking him, when am I going to be a $5 million region? You know, because in my mind, that's when you had landed, the ship had landed. And he broke it down like he's so good at doing. And he said, it's going to happen when you average having 75 average weekly producers a week. Back then we had hard copy computer printouts. So my admin would go with a yellow highlighter, and it didn't matter if they produced $8,000 or $8. If they split a intensive care app, which was about $8 back then, she highlighted them if they hit report. And every week I kept track of how many average weekly producers I had. And if you're growing your producers, you're going to be growing your number. And so just really keeping it simple. One other quick example of that is when I had at the time right before I was promoted to a state sales coordinator, I had 12 districts in Kansas City. And it wasn't 12 mediocre. I mean, they all hit fame. And just something as simple as keeping it in front of them. I used to get a little sticky note, and I'd say, this is how much production you need. This is how many groups you need. This is how much, new associate premium you need. And just awareness.
Yeah.
You'll know the score, report the score, it'll improve type deal. But that coupled with constantly letting them know what you're doing is going to lead you down the road to massive success by way of wealth for those who are looking and in it for the money, freedom of time, or getting promoted to the next level. Some people want to be promoted to a market director, and that's an easy conversation, to just keep that in front of them. If you're going to be good, you got to be great now.
You also, another one that I know is really, you're passionate about it. I think it's one of our sponsors, Build the Bench, which is leadership development with having high standards, high expectations, and also setting up DSCs to actually be part of that conversation. So can you walk through a little bit from, I don't know, just from like a leadership perspective of like the importance of the CIT program? What were some of the, I know that yours was so fine tuned that, we could have 5 podcasts on it, and we probably will end up having a dedicated one when you come back. But I would love to hear, like, what are some of those things that, like, were some of those key points for you that, like, got that CIT program going? And, what could a region do?
So, and this is an easy one and it's also, I think, a really important one, because one thing that I wanted to do is just to have awareness. We want to talk about the truth, which is if someone's going to get promoted, we're talking about coordinator expansion. If we're going to promote someone from a level 1 to a level 30, we have to just be completely, talk about the elephant in the room. When we usually promote not zeros, we promote people who are actually doing something, opening groups, writing production. They're productive and a valued member because you're bonusing, you're getting stock, you're getting bonus, you're getting all these things. And so when a level 1 becomes a level 30, the 30 is smart enough to know that, that's not going to be there. We also know that we work for a growth company. And just as a practical matter, a growth company has to have growth. By definition, that's what it is. And so I wanted the DSCs to understand in my organization that, look, I've been where you are. I know it hurts. I also know it's important. How can we have the growth that we need from the company's perspective? How can I do that without hurting you, because if I can't do it without hurting you, I don't want to be in the job I'm in.
Mhm.
I believe the best surprise, I've always believed this. This is like a pepism. The best surprise is no surprise. So, I asked the question, if we hire somebody, should they never be promoted? Or should they maybe after 5 years, after 6 months? What's the answer? Most people, if they're being truthful with you, they will say to you, maybe if after they've jumped through so many hoops, after they've been here for a year or so. So I want them to agree that the answer is not never. They deserve at some point the same opportunity you and I had to get promoted. And so I do believe that it's good to get my promotions from a CIT, because we know that the very best salespeople aren't necessarily, in fact, we've proven this so many times, Aflac should do a podcast on this. Just because you're a good salesperson doesn't at all mean you're going to be a good leader.
Correct.
So, I've seen people come almost to fisticuffs over, I called on a group, I called on it too. How do we do that? If 2 people call on a group, how does the district handle that? We don't give them guns and let them have 10 paces.
Actually, in LA, we do.
It's a shootout.
So some of the things that we cover in a CIT program is what do you do when there's conflict? Conflict resolution. How do we learn, define contribution? How do we fix an invoice that's all jacked up? Because what's happening right now is they're calling the DSC. I want the DSCs to understand that, look, we have criteria in order to get into the CIT. We have criteria to stay in. Basically, I kind of agree with them. It should probably be, I'm not going to give any specific time, but in my organization, I didn't want anyone really promoted for a year or so. And I certainly understand a DSC that would feel the same way. They're not trying to break even. They're training them, splitting incomes. They're pouring into them in order to make money, not to break even. Just as a practical matter, they want to be and have them for a while. I think they should. But one of the things that I want the DSCs to understand is if we put people in the CIT program, we can have clearly defined perimeters. So there's no surprises. When they've been here, I'm just making this up, for a year and 3 months, if they've done this, this, and this, if they've opened this many groups, if they've helped you make fame, if they've helped you make
New Agent
nasty,
Success Bonus.
all those things that we're going to be able to promote them. You know that it's coming. You also know, and this is equally as important, you also know that I won't promote them until then. The best surprise is no surprise.
I think what we've built in the marketplace too is that organic side of things versus trying to pull someone, because we've done that in the past, right? Trying to pull someone from the outside and think it's going to work, and then when it crumbles, they're like, "What's going on?" But I think with our Build the Bench team and having a CIT program back in this market has allowed us to actually build those next strong leaders that are succeeding today. We've promoted some coming into the year that have been hitting their bonus consecutively.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got a next generation I know that we'll be promoting coming into 2026. So it's pretty cool to kind of see where we were to where we are going into 2026 with, and a lot of growth in that.
And when you have the CIT program, like when you have whatever you want to call it, I call it CIT, I keep it simple. But when you have that and you have your, once a month or whatever it is meeting, I always wanted to be there because it's a captive audience. It's a time where I can pour into them and
that's your idea.
I've got them. Yeah. It's a captive audience. I mean, I'm sitting there able to talk to them and tell them the highs, the lows. I'm very candid. The good news is that I found out, and I just rediscover this every time. I've had a really, really eye-opening experience here, not because I'm doing this, because it's true. But I learned that every time I go to a different organization, you can tell them the good, tell them the bad. With Aflac, the good outweighs the bad. You can tell them, just like an interview, I tell them the good, but most people, I always tell them what other people don't. I'm going to tell you the bad.
Yeah.
Because you're going to figure the good out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you the good and the bad. Guess what? The good outweighs the bad. But you have a lot more credibility because you've taken the time to tell them. And I think the CIT is the same way. When I have people in a CIT class and whatever the subject is that we're happen to be talking about that particular month, we always try to break bread together and have lunch, even if it's pizza or Subway. And we're sitting around shooting the bull, before we get into the meeting, and some really interesting and meaningful conversations come out of that. And they realize, this guy, or if it's my state trainer, they're just telling us the way it is, and the good outweighs the bad. So
I love that. All right. So we are moving into our favorite segment. But before we do that, I'm going to tell Michelle, I did not tell her this. So this is a surprise for Michelle Lee. So those of you that are actually still listening right now, the first 5 people that text Michelle Lee $20, just text her $20, she will Venmo you $20. So in a month or so, Michelle, you get to Venmo our 5 listeners $20.
Let's
maybe.
do it.
We'll see.
Let's see who texts me.
Let's see. This will be fun. All right. So this is our rapid fire round. What is one book that you have given to more people, and why have you given that book or gifted that book to people?
That book would be Adherence, The Art of Sticking to It. The reason, a bunch of reasons. One is very, very short. 2, it basically shows you that there's not a single way to skin the cat. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat. You can get from point A to B by making a big sweeping curve to the left and up, big sweeping curve to the right. You can zigzag, you can go straight. The punchline on it is that a mediocre strategy with great adherence will smoke and eat for lunch. A greatest strategy ever with poor adherence. Find something that is you. Find something that fits you.
So what's the main highway that you drive at home?
Main highway?
Yeah.
35, Interstate 35.
So if you had a chance to have a billboard on Highway 35, that is a statement that is John Tyler, what would that billboard say?
I've said it, it's not going to be a new thing. But, it takes the same amount of time to be really awesome as it does to suck mightily. We've all got 24 hours in the day, but why is it that some people can be great if you put them in the middle of the Sahara Desert? They hit their number. It's the old saying, it's the man, not the land, and just treat it like a job. Understand, and I would urge people to, before you even go to work for this company, do a little research. I always tell people that in all likelihood, I really believe this is the best opportunity you'll ever see, except I actually believe it. It's easy for me to say that passionately believable because I do believe it. And it's one of the reasons that I've been here this long.
Well, John, I appreciate you. Casting that vision and developing leaders is how we actually create a legacy, not just the results. And you've given every listener something that they can take back to their teams today.
All right. And to everybody listening, please lead with purpose, invest in your people, keep your eyes on the future.
This has been the LA Legends, where motivation meets mastery. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe, like, share with your friends, and we will see you next time.
Get $20.